Hi there, welcome. Welcome to HomeKeepers. We believe thoroughly, completely, absolutely that Jesus is coming back to earth. That's what we're going to talk about today with my guest, Dr. Todd Perla, who is an M.D., but also appears to me a dedicated church man. He's taught Sunday school, taught a lot of Bible classes, done a lot of studying on his own, and he's written the book End Times Church Deception. So we're going to talk about the different beliefs that the Christian church has about the end times, and that's always an interesting subject. You have come to a conclusion that you didn't always have,
yes,
right?
Ma'am.
Were you, you become a Christian as a young person?
At the age of 25, after struggling through a lot of issues, I finally saw the truth, and praise God, I've never been the same since.
Well, were you born in a Christian home?
No, I was raised in a Catholic background. We went to Mass every Sunday, but we didn't live the life.
Mm-hmm. And I would mention he's a medical doctor. Did you have a specialist?
I was in family practice and board certified at this moment, but I'm working in emergency rooms and urgent care clinics around the state of Florida at this time.
Does that emergency room experience, keep you on the edge?
I try to work on the what's called the fast track side of the emergency room, where it's less serious stuff, but you can get some difficult patients.
Yeah,
definitely.
Got to be ready for that. All right, I'm intrigued by the word deception on your title, because I've interviewed people on both sides, and I've taught Bible myself, but I'm not into prophecy that much that I could teach it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if people are being deceived on a belief as to how it's going to all work out, do you think that's intentional?
I don't believe it's intentional for most situations. I believe that it's been fed through the seminaries over the years, and it started back in the 1870s when an Anglican minister named Darby came over to the United States with this new doctrine called the pre-tribulation rapture. And so I think some of it's just being indoctrinated with Scofield's Bible, which had Darby's messages in it, and then also I think there's some pressure on pastors to conform to the pre-tribulation rapture, or they're ostracized from their affiliations, and there's pressures. Some of the reasons may be just ignorance about the end time scriptures, and some may be a refusal to change their past preaching, because it's a serious issue if you've been a preacher for 15 years preaching one doctrine and all of a sudden change your mind.
Okay, now can you describe the two variables here? Would you say that for most of the fundamentalists in America, they believe in a pre-trib?
Right, 90%.
90% of them?
Yes.
So who believes the way your book lays it out as far as current?
Marvin Rosenthal is very close, and a gentleman with the last name of Van Kampen. And as I look through church history, there were a couple of Jesuit priests that believed in a rapture shortly before the end of tribulation period. If you look at church history over the last 1,800 years of church history, starting from the disciples of John, who wrote the book of Revelation, forward, you see a predominant preaching that the church would experience the tribulation, and it just was changed in the last 140 years.
So you're talking about a timeline.
Right.
That most fundamentalists in the United States believe that the church will be taken out before the tribulation begins.
Yes, ma'am.
And your belief is that we will go through
most of it.
Through most of the tribulation.
And this preaching on a pre-tribulation rapture has put us in a deception. We are not prepared prepared for persecution. We don't expect persecution. And really, we've been in a false paradigm the last couple hundred years in America. This health, wealth, prosperity that we've learned to expect, that's not the norm for when you look at church history from the beginning.
It's not the norm for Christianity.
No, it's severe suffering.
No, right. Now, are there people, say, in Rwanda and places like this who believe they're already in the tribulation?
Right, and there's a lot of persecution. 10% of the Christians worldwide are under severe persecution. But unlike the actual tribulation period, the whole world of Christianity will be under severe persecution. And like Matthew 24:21 says, it'll be a time of great distress, unequaled since the beginning of time, never to be equaled again. So we're talking serious stuff.
So what do you do with, is it 1 Thessalonians where it talks about being caught away?
Right, and I believe that, that's talking about the rapture, and we get caught up as Christ is leaving the right hand of God. He meets us in the air, and then takes us to Mount Zion. And if you look at the Greek word to meet, it's a word that means you're meeting somebody that starts off at point A, which Jesus was at the right hand of God, and then he meets you at point B in the air, and he takes you to point C, not back to point A. So a pre-tribulation rapture is a contradiction just looking at that single Greek word to meet.
So the difference is the timeline.
Right.
The basic difference. Now, I was thinking about this before I came in the studio. I wondered what in the world any pastor, anybody on television, whatever, could convince people in America of a severe tribulation. After 9/11, people went to church for a little while.
2 weeks.
When I was a kid growing up, we sang about heaven, preached about it. As a little girl, I would wonder, will Jesus come today? But now this affluence and what I believe is very, well, I don't want to say completely false, but the whole prosperity message, for the most part, I don't believe it.
Right.
But they're inundated with that, inundated with self-help books, how to be a better you, 10 steps for that. And so this is the mix in America when actually people from the outside come and think, what's going on here?
That's
right. Christians from China and places like this. What would it take to wake up America, no matter what you believe on it?
It's going to take revival, and then the revival needs to start with the church, and we need to start acting differently than the world. And unfortunately, and I'm sad to say, when you look at most studies of born-again, quote, born-again Christians, the morality is no different than those who aren't. And like you look at some of the studies, only 5% of so-called Christians have a biblical worldview where they see the world through the lens of the Bible. So something's gone astray. So it's going to take revival, and it's going to have to start with the church first. And it may take persecution. And persecution has a way of refining the church.
Yeah. You know, when you look back and then you look at what's happening now, does the whole message really flourish in times of affluence?
In the past history, when there's lack of persecution, there tends to be complacency, self-centeredness, self-indulgence. So the church really functions best under persecution.
And what drives me kind of crazy inside is it shouldn't have to be that way.
No.